Yo, what is good, guys? This is X Ninja Free to Play, and today I'm going to be covering Red Megumi versus Red Mahito. Now, the main reason for this is number one, I didn't drop a Should You Summon video for Mahito, and number two, these characters are, I wouldn't say they're similar, but they kind of have the same role. They're both red and they're both a support, so they're kind of on the same role. So you're probably going to want to compare these two. So I'm just going to be helping y'all out on which one should you be focusing your cubes on, because we got Red Mahito just 2 days ago, and we're going to be getting Red Megumi in the next week or so, in the next week or two. So let's get to the video. Please like and subscribe, and let's hop into it. Alright, so with these two units, I guess I'm just gonna go and immediately define what these two characters are doing before we even get into it, right? So first of all, Red Mahito is a mixed character. He has mixed damage, so that's very important for him because you can use him on pretty much anything and he will get the job done. Pretty much any floor, any sweep, as long as it doesn't directly counter him, then he will be fine. He will be doing damage. Next we have Next we have Red Megumi, and he's not mixed, he's combined, which is, I guess it's kind of different. So I feel like he's more Jujutsu than he is Taijutsu. You could probably say he's more Taijutsu than, not Taijutsu, Jujutsu than he is Taijutsu, which is pretty interesting. So you're going to want to use him on more Jujutsu floors, but his buffs are good enough to where it doesn't really matter. That's the thing with supports. Even if they're not going to be doing damage, they're still going to work as long as you use them right. So that is a cool thing with these two units. So both of them here, I guess starting off with just like initial stats, Mahito is getting 12.5k to both his Taijutsu and Jujutsu. I'm looking at the site, by the way, if y'all want to know where I'm getting this information from. Megumi is only getting about 10k to his Taijutsu and 11.8k to his Jujutsu, so he's definitely more Jujutsu unit, but he is going to be doing less right off the bat. There's about a 700 difference between the Jujutsu stat of Mahito and Megumi, and then the Taijutsu, Mahito just blows him out of the water with that one. So that is something to take into consideration. Mahito is also a cursed spirit, so I'm pretty sure that he can't be given reverse curse technique by like Shoko or something like that, but you're not going to be using that because this is a red setup here. So with this, we're going to start off going through like every single skill, and then I'll just give you my final thoughts and whatnot, and I'll just talk a little more about these two units and just how I think they stack up. So with the skill one here, another thing to notice about them before I even go forward is that they both like change how they fight mid-battle. Like for instance, Red Mahito, when he uses his ult, he's gonna get his new form and he's going to be just doing things differently and just be way more buffed up. And with Red Megumi, he has to use a skill 3 to change it to where you're going to be actually doing what you want to do. So we'll get to that in a second. I feel like the thing you can mention with that is that it will take a lot longer to get to your peak with Red Mahito than it will with Red Megumi, because you have to use an ult before you get to the peak. But the thing with Red Mahito is that he's still crazy even when he's not at his peak. So skill 1, not when he's just in his basic state, it's pretty basic. It does give crit res, and that is very, very big, I would say. Crit res is very big just for the Taijutsu units. So with Red Yuji, you probably just off of the skill 1 alone, comparing these two guys skill 1, because Megumi's skill 1 is just very, very basic. So just off of the skill 1 alone, you're going to want to be using Mahito with Yuji. So if you do have Yuji, immediately we're going to take that into consideration. And I'm going to be talking about how the other red units combine with these units in a second here. And the changed skill 1 for Red Mahito is, of course, going to do mixed damage. And it does give a damage increase to the enemy. And it does have crit res as well. And Megumi's changed skill 1 doesn't really do anything, to be honest. So before we get into like the meat of the I don't know, the difference between these two, I just want to say that Mahito will be giving damage received increases for red 4 turns, by the way. So there is a huge difference between damage received increase taken from the enemy and taijutsu and jujutsu damage received by what Megumi is doing. And at first glance, you're going to be thinking, Megumi's is only 25%, and then when he uses his bunny, it's 50%. Meanwhile, Mahito, he can do 50% as well. And yeah, he can do 50% as well. And when you're thinking about that, just know that damage received is very different. Damage received, I feel like, is more additive, I would say. I've heard, like, I'm pretty sure it's additive. I might be wrong. You guys can correct me on this, but it is additive, while what Megumi is doing is multiplicative. So technically, Megumi's buffs are better than Mahito's. I'm just going to say that. Technically, Megumi's buffs are better than Mahito's, but we're going to get to that in a second. So moving on from the skill 1 to the skill 2, by the way, just take into consideration, Mahito is going to be doing way more damage than Megumi and all of these skills. But immediately, he has a 50% damage received increase to the enemy for Mahito. Meanwhile, Megumi here is going to have a 20, no, not 25. No, it actually is 25% damage increase with taijutsu and jujutsu. The fact that it says that means that it's going to be multiplicative, so that is really good, but you're not going to be using the regular skill 2 for Megumi. If you do, you're just using them wrong. The game loop that you want to have with Red Megumi is you're going to want to use his skill 3, and don't worry, you're not going to be losing that much buffs from the skill 3, because it does give some buffs, taijutsu and jujutsu buffs, but the second you use that skill 3, you will be able to change your skill 2, which is where that whole Megumi gets a lot a faster build up. So I guess he's just better in quicker floors. He will get, when you use the skill 3, he will get that skill 2 change, and that skill 2 change will give him the 50% to taijutsu and jujutsu damage increase. So that is very important for this man. That's just very important. With Mahito, meanwhile, after he uses the ult and he changes his skill 2, he will be doing 50% damage received, and that's also pretty good as well. Megumi is probably going to be doing more damage, more support in this regard, but that's still pretty good for Mahito. Now with Mahito's skill 3, he actually can do a black flash. So this is like right before he does his ult. I think it consumes ult gauge. No, it doesn't consume ult gauge. Once he gets to a high enough ult gauge, he'll be able to do this, and this is a guaranteed black flash. It also has crit resistance. It decreases the enemy's crit resistance. So I'm just going to say this right now. Crit resistance, for those who don't know, when you lower crit resistance, that makes it instant, like way better for your taijutsu units. So Red Yuji is probably the #1 DPS for Red right now, and he wants to do black flashes. How to do black flashes, like how to do more of them consistently, is to hit crits. Once you hit crits, you hit black flashes. Once you hit black flashes, you're really doing damage with Yuji. So this crit resistance, this 45% crit resistance that Mahito is giving, which would be going to Red Yuji, is absolutely huge for Red Yuji. You will be doing way more black flashes and way more damage with Yuji. So that is something you want to take into consideration. Like, we will be talking about this later, but his skill 3 does a chunk of damage, like a lot of damage. Megumi's skill 3 doesn't really do anything, so that is something to take into consideration. But Mahito's skill 3 does a ton of damage. And then his changed skill 3, once he's used his ult, gives a full 80% damage increase. Yeah, let me make sure this is right. No, not 80%. Whoa, I read that totally wrong. My bad. It gives 50%. And it's for 4 turns as well. The 80% I was getting from the mixed damage, but the damage that he does on this skill 3 is absolutely nuclear, bro. He does so much damage. Now, with the ults are kind of, I don't know, they're just kind of just basic ults, I guess you could say. With Mahito, of course, it gives the damage received by just a little bit more with that 60% that you're going to be getting. And with Megumi, he gives more extra buffs and he removes his rapid escape and totality, so you're gonna have to reapply those, but it does give a whole 100%, which is wild. 100% to taijutsu and jujutsu, which is very important. His auto skill isn't really much. He just has the divine dogs. You can rate that up, honestly. With Mahito, he's gonna be getting regen, and he's also gonna have a zone state. So all in all, with these two units, they're like both really good supports. Now, how I would like say with these two is that with Megumi, his gameplay loop is a lot more basic, and for me personally, it's a lot more boring. Like, you just use a skill 3, then you spam skill 2, spam skill 2, use your ult, skill 3 again, spam skill 2. That's basically what you're doing. And his damage is not the greatest. His damage is good. Like, he's a sub DPS. His damage is pretty good, but it's not that good because you're going to be using his skill 2 most of the time, and the skill 2 is just not hitting that crazy. And with Mahito, you're going to be getting less support, but the damage that he does, it just does so much damage. He feels like Green Choso, where he supports really good, but he does so much damage that he could be a DPS. That's what he feels like. Like, the damage that he does is literally, it's insane for a support. So when you're trying to decide who to use, you have to take into consideration first who you have. So for instance, if you have Red Yuji already, then Red Mahito is dang your must-have, bro. He's just a must-have to use. He's just great. He's just great for the team because the crit res he's getting, even if you have Toji, the nimble Red Yuji, then Red Mahito is just a great unit to use. With Red Megumi, he does a bit more support, and since that bit more support, I guess that's useful more for the taijutsu units. Not taijutsu units, for the jujutsu units, which Red doesn't have jujutsu. So I feel like in pretty much every other aspect, Red Mahito is just outclassing Red Megumi. So for who you should like go for, it's obviously just going to be Red Mahito. He is an anniversary unit. Red Megumi is not, but Red Megumi is a good other option to have. He's still like a core member on the red team. We couldn't even clear tower. I mean, we couldn't even clear hard sweep without Red Megumi global because he has yet to drop. I think you can with Red Mahito and not Red Megumi, but I'm not sure. But he is still a must-have unit. I feel like both these units, they kind of feel like must-have units, but you have to just pick which one. And for me, I would say then you should just go for Red Mahito. He is the best unit to get. If you did enjoy the video and whatnot, please like and subscribe and whatnot. I'm trying to get to 200 subs, hopefully 500 subs. I don't know, wherever this takes me. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.